I never thought I'd see my dead wife's name flash across my phone screen, but there it was, at 9:47 on a Tuesday morning in October, right as I was reaching for the pen that would sign away everything I'd built in 53 years. The text was simple, just 6 words, but those 6 words stopped my hand mid-air and probably saved my life. Don't trust David. Check the safe. My hand froze. The Mont Blanc pen Gerald had offered me, heavy and expensive, hovered over the signature line. David's hand was on my shoulder, warm and reassuring, the way it had been for the past 14 months since Christine passed, the way I'd thought it had been my whole life. But that text message, that impossible message from a number I'd kept active just to hear her voicemail, changed everything in an instant. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without understanding how I got to that lawyer's office in the first place. My hand shaking over documents that would transfer Morrison's Custom Metalworks to my son David, the business I'd started in 1971 with $800, a welding torch I bought at a pawn shop, and skills the Marine Corps taught me in Vietnam. Not the Army, Marines. There's a difference, and any veteran will tell you it matters. I was 19 years old when I shipped out to Da Nang, scared kid from Phoenix who'd never been further than Flagstaff. I came back at 22 with a chest full of medals I never wore and skills I never knew I'd use to build an empire. Welding saved my life, honestly, gave me something to focus on when the nightmares got bad, something productive to do with hands that had seen too much destruction. I'm Jack Morrison, 68 years old, Marine Corps veteran, widower for 14 months, and apparently the world's biggest fool. That Tuesday morning, I sat in Gerald Penske's law office on Chandler Avenue in Phoenix, Arizona, surrounded by papers I barely understood, legal terms that swam in front of my eyes, and my son David sitting across from me with a smile that I'd mistaken for love my entire life. My workshop, Morrison's Custom Metalworks, sits on 4 acres off Route 60, just outside Apache Junction. 42 years I've been in that location. I built it from nothing after I came back from my second tour. 3 Quonset huts, a main shop that's 12,000 square feet, specialized equipment for custom fabrication, a client list that includes aerospace contractors, movie studios, and half the custom car builders in the Southwest. Last year alone, we did $3.2 million in revenue. Not bad for a guy who started by welding trailer hitches in his garage. We specialized in the impossible. That was our reputation. If someone wanted custom railings for a Frank Lloyd Wright restoration, they called us. If a movie needed a 20-foot mechanical dragon that could breathe actual fire, we figured it out. If Boeing needed prototype parts fabricated to tolerances most shops couldn't touch, we delivered. I'd hired other veterans when I could. Good men who needed steady work and understood discipline. Carlos, my shop foreman, had been Army infantry in Desert Storm. Pete, who ran our CNC machines, was Navy. We didn't talk about our service much, but we understood each other in ways civilians never quite did. The shop floor smelled like hot metal and cutting fluid and honest work. That's what I'd miss most if I signed those papers. Not the money, not even the legacy. Just the smell of the place and the sound of metal being shaped into something useful, something that would last long after I was gone. But that Tuesday, I wasn't thinking about revenue or success. I was thinking about how tired I was, how much my back hurt from 50 years of standing at a welding bench, how the arthritis in my hands made it hard to hold the torch steady anymore. How empty my house felt every single morning when I woke up and Christine wasn't there. My wife died of pancreatic cancer on September 14th of last year, 62 years old. We had 44 years together. High school sweethearts. She was a cheerleader. I was a long-haired kid who worked on motorcycles. Her father hated me, told her I'd never amount to anything. We got married anyway 2 months after I got back from Saigon, and we proved him wrong together. After she died, I fell apart. Not obviously. I still showed up at the workshop every morning at 6. Still supervised my crew of 17, still took client calls and reviewed designs. But inside, I was hollow. The house where we'd raised David and his sister Emma felt like a museum. Her coffee mug still sat on the counter, her reading glasses on the nightstand. I couldn't move anything, couldn't change anything. It felt like erasing her. The nights were the worst. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning reaching for her, finding only cold sheets. I'd go downstairs, turn on every light in the house because the darkness felt too heavy, and sit at the kitchen table drinking coffee until sunrise. Sometimes I'd pull out old photo albums. Christine at 20, radiant in her wedding dress that we'd bought second-hand because we couldn't afford new. Christine pregnant with David, glowing and happy. Christine at Emma's college graduation, so proud even though I'd barely spoken to Emma that day because I'd been angry she'd chosen art school instead of something practical. All those moments I'd taken for granted. All those times I'd chosen work over her. All those anniversaries where I'd bought flowers at the last minute from the gas station instead of planning something special. It all haunted me in those dark hours. The guys at the shop noticed, but didn't say much. Veterans are good at respecting grief. Carlos would leave coffee on my desk without a word. Pete made sure the job assignments were organized so I didn't have to think too hard. They carried me through those first months, and I never properly thanked them. David noticed. My son, my only son, 41 years old, had always been attentive, but after Christine died, he became even more so. He'd stop by the house every evening after work. Bring dinner, sit with me. Listen to me tell the same stories about his mother over and over. He never complained, never looked bored, just listened like every word mattered. "You're taking on too much, Dad," he'd say. "You need to slow down. Think about retirement. Think about enjoying your life." Mum would want that. He was right about the last part. Christine had wanted me to retire for 5 years, wanted us to travel. See the Grand Canyon properly, not just the quick trip we'd taken in 1989. Visit Emma in Portland, where she'd moved with her husband and our 2 grandkids. Maybe even go to Ireland, where my grandfather was born. But I kept putting it off. One more year, one more big project, one more milestone. Now Christine was gone, and all those one more years felt like broken promises I could never fix. David had worked at the shop since he was 16, started sweeping floors, moving stock, learning the trade the same way I had, from the ground up. He was good with his hands, patient with complex fabrications, and clients liked him. When he turned 30, I made him operations manager. When he turned 35, I made him vice president. The plan had always been that someday the business would be his. Someday came faster than I expected. 3 months after Christine died, I had what the doctors called a minor cardiac event. I'd been in the shop working on a custom gate for a client in Scottsdale when my chest went tight and my left arm started tingling. I thought it was just muscle strain. Kept working. Finished the weld. Then David found me sitting on the floor of the shop, grey-faced and sweating. I remember him kneeling beside me, his face twisted with concern. "Dad, Dad, can you hear me? I'm calling 911. Stay with me." The ambulance ride was a blur. The EMT, a young woman with kind eyes, kept asking me questions. "Do you know what day it is? Who's the president? Can you squeeze my hand?" I answered everything correctly, embarrassed that they'd made such a fuss over what was probably just indigestion. But it wasn't indigestion. The ER doctor was blunt. 50% blockage in 2 arteries. I needed stents, needed to reduce stress, needed to stop working 70-hour weeks at 68 years old. "You're not 20 anymore, Mr. Morrison. Your body's trying to tell you something. Listen to it, or next time you might not be so lucky." David drove me home from the hospital, settled me on the couch, made tea the way Christine used to make it, strong with honey. Then he sat down across from me and said the words that started this whole nightmare rolling. "Dad, we need to talk about the future. Your future, the shop's future. You can't keep doing this. It's killing you. Let me take over, really take over. You built something incredible, and I want to protect it. But I need you alive to see me do it. I looked at my son that day and saw the boy who used to sit on my workbench, legs swinging, asking a million questions about every tool. Saw the teenager who'd helped me complete my first big contract, working through the night to meet a deadline. Saw the man who'd stood beside me at Christine's funeral and held me up when my legs gave out. How would it work, I asked. Transfer of ownership. Clean and legal. You'd still have a role if you wanted. Consultant, advisor, whatever feels right. But the day-to-day operations, the stress, the pressure, that would be mine. You could rest, Dad. You could heal. Maybe even live a little. That's what Mom wanted for you. He was so earnest, so sincere, and I was so tired and so heartbroken that I said yes without thinking twice. The paperwork took 3 months to prepare. Gerald Penske, who'd been my attorney for 20 years, drew up a complete transfer of ownership. Morrison's custom metalworks would become David's. The property, the equipment, the client contracts, the intellectual property, the bank accounts, everything. In exchange, I'd receive a consultant's salary of $5,000 a month for life, health insurance, and the right to keep my small office in the main building if I wanted to come in and putter around. $5,000 a month sounded reasonable to me. I owned my house outright, had my military pension, had Christine's life insurance payout of $180,000 sitting in the bank untouched because I couldn't bring myself to spend it. $5,000 a month would cover utilities, food, maybe some travel if I ever felt like going anywhere. David was handling everything. Gerald would ask me to initial here, sign there, and David would lean over and explain each section in simple terms. This part protects you, Dad. This part ensures you'll always have access to your workshop. This part guarantees your consultant's salary gets paid first, even before any other expenses. He's taking care of you, Jack, Gerald would say, smiling. You raised a good son. I believed them both. The signing was scheduled for Tuesday, October 17th, at 10 in the morning. David picked me up at my house at 9:15. Drove us to Gerald's office in his Chevy Silverado, the truck I'd helped him buy 7 years ago with a $10,000 loan he'd never paid back. Not that I cared. A father helps his son. That's how it works. We sat in Gerald's conference room, papers spread across the mahogany table. David on my left, Gerald across from us, his paralegal Sandra beside him ready to notarize. Everything was ready. David's hand rested on my shoulder, warm and reassuring. Gerald slid the final transfer document toward me and offered his fancy Mont Blanc pen. Just need your signature right here, Jack. And it's done. Congratulations, David. You're about to become the owner of a very successful business. I picked up the pen, positioned it over the signature line. My hand was shaking a little, arthritis and nerves. David squeezed my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, Dad. Mum would be so proud. That's when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I almost ignored it, should have ignored it, but something, maybe instinct, maybe Christine's ghost, made me set down the pen and pull out my phone. An old iPhone 8 that David had been trying to get me to upgrade for 2 years. The screen was cracked from when I dropped it in the shop parking lot. One new message from Christine Morrison. The room went cold. I stared at that name, at the little message preview that showed beneath it. Don't trust David. Check the safe. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Everything okay, Dad? David asked, his voice tight. I looked at him, really looked at him. Saw something in his eyes I'd never noticed before. Something calculating and cold. There and gone so fast I might have imagined it. I need to use the restroom, I said, standing up. My legs felt weak. Just need a minute. Of course, Gerald said. Down the hall, second door on the left. I walked out of that conference room on autopilot. Found the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at my phone screen with my heart hammering so hard I thought I might have another cardiac event right there. The text was from Christine's number. The number I hadn't cancelled because I couldn't bear to let it go. The number I sometimes called late at night just to hear her voicemail message. Her voice saying, "You've reached Christine Morrison. Leave a message and I'll call you back." Always made me cry. Someone had Christine's phone, or someone had access to her number, or I was losing my mind. Those were the only options that made sense. Dead people don't send texts. But Christine's phone had been buried with her. I'd put it in her casket myself, tucked in beside her hand. I couldn't stand the thought of her being alone without it, which I knew was crazy. But grief makes you crazy. David had watched me do it. Watched me slip her phone in beside her Bible and the locket I'd given her on our 20th anniversary, unless he'd taken it out before they closed the casket. The thought hit me like ice water. David had insisted on a few minutes alone with his mother before the funeral director sealed everything. To say goodbye privately, he'd said. I'd thought it was beautiful, appropriate, a son's love for his mother. But what if he'd taken her phone? My hands were shaking as I opened my text messages. Scrolled back through months of conversations. Most were from David, checking on me, asking about doctor's appointments, reminding me about meetings with Gerald. A few from Emma, my daughter, brief messages, because we weren't as close as I wished we were. My fault, mostly. I'd always been harder on her than on David, expected more, criticized more. She'd moved to Portland 10 years ago, and our relationship had been strained ever since. I found Christine's contact. Our last real conversation had been 2 days before she died. She texted me from the hospice bed in our living room, too weak to speak much, but still wanting to communicate. I love you, Jack. Take care of yourself. Don't work too hard. Let David help you. I'd read that message 1,000 times in the past 14 months. Now there was a new message underneath. Don't trust David. Check the safe. What safe? We had a gun safe in the bedroom closet. My service pistol from the Marines. A Colt 1911 I'd carried in Vietnam and never fired at another human being, thank God. Christine's jewelry box sat on top of the safe. Nothing of real value. Her engagement ring, some pearls her mother had left her, a few pieces I'd bought her over the years, but there was another safe. One I'd forgotten about. When we'd first bought our house in 1986, Christine had insisted on a floor safe installed in the master bedroom closet. She'd grown up poor, daughter of a factory worker, and she never fully trusted banks. She wanted a place to keep emergency cash, important documents, things that mattered. I'd had it installed underneath a false floorboard. Over the years, we'd used it less and less as everything went digital and our bank accounts grew. I honestly couldn't remember the last time I'd opened it. I stood up, splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in Gerald's fancy bathroom mirror. I looked old. Grey beard, deep lines around my eyes, skin that had seen too much sun in the Arizona desert. I looked like a man who was ready to sign his life away because he was too tired to keep fighting. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I walked back into the conference room. David looked up, concerned. "You okay, Dad? You're pale." "I'm fine." I looked at Gerald. "Something's come up. A personal matter. I need to reschedule." Gerald blinked. "Reschedule? Jack, we're 99% done here. Just need your signature. I understand, but I need to take care of something first. Can we reconvene tomorrow?" "Dad." David's voice was sharp. "What's going on?" "Nothing. I just need to handle something at home. I'll be back tomorrow, I promise." I could see David's jaw clenching. Gerald looked confused. Sandra, the paralegal, was typing something on her laptop, oblivious to the sudden tension in the room. "Let me drive you home," David said, standing up. "We can talk in the car. I'll take a cab." I was already moving toward the door. "Thanks, Gerald. Sorry for the inconvenience. I was out of the building before David could follow. Called an Uber on my phone, hands still shaking. Waited on the sidewalk in the October heat, watching the door of Gerald's building like David might come bursting through any second. He didn't. The Uber driver, a young woman with bright purple hair, picked me up in a Honda Civic. She didn't try to make conversation, which I appreciated. Just drove me home to my house on Desert Willow Lane while I stared at my phone and that impossible text message. Home was a ranch-style house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, built in 1983. Christine and I had bought it when David was 7 and Emma was 5. Desert landscaping out front, xeriscape before that was a trendy word, because Christine had always been practical about water in Arizona. Her garden of cacti and succulents still thrived, even though I barely remembered to water them. I paid the driver, included a big tip because my hands were shaking and I hit the wrong button, and went inside. The house smelled stale. I'd stopped opening windows after Christine died, stopped doing a lot of things. I went straight to our bedroom, to the walk-in closet that still held all of Christine's clothes. I hadn't been able to pack them up, hadn't donated anything. Sometimes I'd stand in the closet and press my face into her dresses, trying to smell her perfume, that vanilla and jasmine scent she'd worn for 40 years. The gun safe sat on the floor in the back corner. I moved it aside, grunting with effort, my back screaming. Underneath, the carpet was cut in a neat square. I pulled it up, revealing the trap door to the floor safe. The combination. What was the combination? Christine had set it. 4 numbers, something significant to us. Our wedding anniversary. 082372, I tried it. Nothing. David's birthday, 041483, nothing. I sat back on my heels, frustrated. Thought harder. Christine had been sentimental about specific dates. Our first date. The day we bought this house. The day I came home from Vietnam. The day I came home from Vietnam. November 11th, 1970. I'd landed at Travis Air Force Base at 0300 hours. Taken a bus to San Francisco. Another bus to Phoenix. Walked up to Christine's parents' house at 8 in the morning, still in my uniform, carrying my duffel bag. She'd been in the kitchen making coffee. Heard the knock, opened the door, saw me standing there. Dropped her coffee mug and jumped into my arms right there on the porch. 111170. The safe clicked open. Inside was a manila envelope, thick with papers. On top of it, Christine's handwriting. For Jack. Open if something happens to me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely pull the envelope out. I sat down on the bedroom floor, my back against the wall, Christine's clothes hanging above me like ghosts, and opened it. The first document was a letter, in Christine's careful cursive, dated just 3 days before she died. The paper was slightly crinkled, like maybe tears had fallen on it while she wrote. I could picture her, propped up in that hospital bed in our living room, using the clipboard I'd rigged up for her so she could write even when she was too weak to sit up properly. My dearest Jack, if you're reading this, I'm gone and I'm sorry. Sorry for leaving you. Sorry for what I'm about to tell you. Sorry for not being strong enough to say this to your face while I still could. I tried, Jack. God knows I tried. But every time I looked at you, saw how much you were already hurting watching me die, I couldn't add to your pain. So I'm doing it this way, like a coward, from beyond the grave where you can't argue with me or tell me I'm wrong. I've known for 8 months that David has been stealing from the business. I have proof. Bank statements, forged checks, diverted payments. It started small 3 years ago, just a few thousand here and there. I noticed it when I was still helping with the books, before I got too sick. At first I thought it was a mistake, an accounting error. But then I started paying closer attention, and Jack, it wasn't a mistake. It's been systematic, deliberate. He created shell companies. He forged your signature. He's been taking money and hiding it in accounts you don't know about. Last I could track, he'd taken over $400,000 from Morrison's Custom Metalworks. 400,000, Jack. From the business you built with your bare hands. From money that was supposed to be our retirement, our security, our legacy. I didn't tell you because you were so proud of him. Because you'd built that business for him. Because watching you with David, seeing how much you loved him and believed in him, was one of the few joys I had left in those final months. I kept hoping he'd stop. I kept thinking maybe he was in trouble, maybe he needed the money for something legitimate and was too proud to ask. I wanted to give him a chance to make it right, but he hasn't stopped. He's gotten bolder. And now that I'm dying, I'm terrified of what he'll do once I'm not here to watch him. He thinks I don't know. He thinks I'm too sick to notice. But pain doesn't make you stupid, Jack. It makes you clear. It strips away all the nonsense and makes you see what's really there. And what's really there is a son who's been planning to take everything from his father. I heard him on the phone one night when he thought I was asleep. He was talking to someone, maybe a lawyer, about how to structure a transfer that would leave you with nothing. How to make it look like you were willingly handing everything over while actually signing away your rights to any real value. He talked about you like you were an obstacle, a problem to be managed. I wanted to shake you awake right then, tell you everything, but I was so weak, Jack, so tired, and you were sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, and I couldn't bear to wake you up to break your heart. I'm a coward. I should have been braver. I should have protected you better. But I'm doing what I can now. I've set up a delayed text to send to your phone. I don't know when you'll get it. Maybe it'll be triggered by something David does. Maybe it'll be pure timing. But if you're reading this letter, it means you found the safe and you're ready to know the truth. The proof is in this envelope. Bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals, forged signatures on checks made out to shell companies David created, email printouts where he discusses hiding assets, transaction records I copied from his computer one night when he left it open in the living room. I've also included contact information for Frank Desmond, a forensic accountant I hired 6 months ago to track everything. He has the full picture. He knows more than what's in this envelope. Call him. Trust him. He's a good man who won't steer you wrong. Jack, I need you to understand something. This isn't about the money. I mean, yes, $400,000 is a lot, and yes, you earned every penny of it through 50 years of hard work, but it's not about the money. It's about what David is willing to do to you, his own father, a man who gave him everything, a man who worked 2 jobs to put him through college, a man who gave him a career and a future and unconditional love. If he's willing to steal from you while I'm dying, while you're grieving, while you're at your most vulnerable, then he's willing to do anything. And I can't let that happen without warning you. I can't leave this world knowing I left you defenseless. Please don't let our son destroy what you built. And please don't let him destroy you. You're the best man I've ever known, Jack Morrison. You're not perfect. You work too much. You're stubborn. You don't always listen. You've made mistakes with Emma that I wish you'd fix. But you're good. You're honorable. You deserve better than what David is planning. So much better. I love you. I've loved you since I was 16 years old, and you fixed my car in the school parking lot and wouldn't let me pay you. I've loved you through Vietnam, through the nightmares, through building the business, through raising our children, through every up and down of 44 years. I'll always love you. I'll be waiting for you on the other side, but take your time getting to me. Live, Jack. Really live. Fix things with Emma. Travel. See the world. Eat good food. Laugh. Find joy again. That's all I ever wanted for you. That's all I want now. Forever yours, Christine. P.S. I've included Emma's phone number, even though I know you have it. Call her. She loves you even though you've been terrible at showing her you love her back. She'll help you if you let her. She's stronger than you think. She's stronger than David, that's for sure. Trust her, Jack. Let her in. I sat on that floor and cried like I hadn't cried since her funeral. Big ugly sobs that shook my whole body, that came from somewhere deep in my chest where I'd been holding everything in for 14 months. Christine had known, had been protecting me even as she was dying, had sacrificed her own peace in her final days to make sure I'd be okay after she was gone. And David, my son, the boy I'd raised to be better than me, the man I'd trusted with everything, he'd been stealing from me while his mother lay dying 30 feet away. While I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, while she took her last breaths. What kind of person does that? I pulled out the rest of the documents, bank statements from Morrison's custom metalworks accounts, showing regular transfers to companies I'd never heard of: Superior Fabrication Consulting, Desert Metals Advisory, Phoenix Manufacturing Solutions. Each one was a shell company. Each one led back to accounts controlled by David. $417,000. That's what Christine had documented over 3 years, and that was 8 months ago. How much more had he taken since then? There were emails, too, printed copies of conversations between David and someone named Marcus Petrie, who appeared to be a lawyer, not Gerald Penske. They discussed the best way to structure the business transfer to leave me with minimal assets and maximum tax liability. They talked about the value of the workshop property, my equipment, my client list. They'd had the business independently appraised at $6.3 million. $6.3 million. And David was trying to get me to sign it over for a consultant's salary of $5,000 a month. I felt sick, physically sick. Stood up too fast and had to grab the closet doorframe to keep from falling. Made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up. Knelt on the cold tile floor and vomited until there was nothing left. My son. My only son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd trusted with everything. The phone rang, David's name on the screen. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. Then the texts started. "Dad, what's going on? Why did you leave like that? Call me back. I'm worried about you." Then, "Dad, seriously, you're scaring me. If something's wrong, let me help. That's what I'm here for." Then, "Gerald says you seemed disoriented. Do you need me to take you to the hospital? I'm on my way to your house." I stood up, washed my face, looked at myself in the mirror again. The old man staring back looked different now, angry, betrayed, but also focused, clear, like fog had lifted and I could finally see. I gathered all the documents from the safe, put them back in the envelope, took photos of everything with my phone just in case. Then I called the number Christine had written at the bottom of her letter. Frank Desmond answered on the second ring. A warm voice, professional but kind. "This is Frank Desmond. Mr. Desmond, my name is Jack Morrison. My late wife Christine hired you about 8 months ago." There was a pause. Then, "Mr. Morrison, yes, I've been waiting for your call. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your wife was a remarkable woman. She left me documents about my son, about my business. I know, she briefed me thoroughly. Are you safe right now? Is David Morrison with you?" "No, but he's on his way. Said he was coming to my house. Then you need to leave immediately. Right now. Pack a bag and go somewhere David doesn't know about. A hotel, a friend's house, anywhere. Once you're safe, call me back and we'll meet. I have everything we need to stop this, but you need to be somewhere he can't pressure you or manipulate you. Can you do that? Where should I go? Is there anyone you trust? Anyone at all who David wouldn't think to contact?" I thought about my sister in New Mexico, my old Marine buddy Carl who lived up in Flagstaff. Then I thought about someone I hadn't talked to in almost 3 years. My daughter, Emma, in Portland. Perfect. Call her. Explain what's happening. Get on a plane today if you can. I'll overnight the complete investigation file to you wherever you are. Mr. Morrison, your wife saved you. Now you need to save yourself." I hung up and immediately called Emma. It rang 4 times. I thought she wouldn't answer. We hadn't spoken since Christine's funeral. Before that, maybe Christmas. Our relationship had been strained for years. I'd been a hard father, critical, always comparing her to David. Always disappointed she hadn't followed me into the metalwork trade, that she'd chosen art school instead, become a graphic designer, married a man I thought was too soft. But she'd loved her mother, and Christine had loved her fiercely. "Hello?" Emma's voice was cautious, surprised. "Emma, it's Dad. I know. Your name came up. Is everything okay?" "No, nothing's okay. I need help. Can I come stay with you for a few days? Today, if possible. I'll explain everything when I get there." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dad, You haven't called me in almost a year, barely talked to me at Mum's funeral. What's going on? Your brother has been stealing from me, from my business. Your mother knew. She left me proof. I was about to sign everything over to him this morning, and she sent me a text. I know that sounds crazy, but Emma, I need someone I can trust, and right now, you're the only person I can think of. I could hear her breathing, processing. Then, send me your flight information. I'll pick you up at PDX. And Dad? I'm glad you called. I booked a flight on Southwest leaving Phoenix at 4:30 that afternoon. Threw clothes in a duffel bag, the same Marine Corps duffel I'd carried in Vietnam. Grabbed my medications, my phone charger, the envelope of documents. I was walking out the door when David's truck pulled into my driveway. For a second I thought about running, getting in my old Ford F-250 and just driving away. But I'd spent my whole life facing things head-on. I wasn't going to start running now. David got out of the truck fast, concern etched on his face. He looked so much like I had at his age, it hurt. Same build, same dark hair going grey at the temples, same strong hands. Dad, thank God, you had me worried sick. What happened at Gerald's office? I need to leave town for a few days. Personal matter. Leave town? His eyes dropped to my duffel bag. Where are you going? That's not your concern. Not my concern. Dad, after this morning, after you bolted from signing the papers, I think I have a right to know what's going on. Do you? I looked at him, really looked at him, searching for remorse, for guilt, for any sign that he felt bad about what he'd been doing. I saw nothing but calculation. Rights are interesting things, David. I've been thinking about rights, about what children have a right to expect from their parents, and what parents have a right to expect from their children. Dad, you're talking in riddles. Are you feeling okay? Should I call your doctor? I'm feeling clearer than I have in 14 months. I know what you've been doing. His face didn't change. Not even a flicker. What are you talking about? The money, David. The transfers. Superior Fabrication Consulting. Desert Metals Advisory. Phoenix Manufacturing Solutions. Should I keep going? Now I saw it. A flash of something cold and hard in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by confusion. I don't know what you're talking about. Christine knew. She documented everything. She hired an investigator. She left me proof. Mom was dying, Dad. She was on heavy pain medication. If she said something, if she thought something, it wasn't real. You know how confused she got toward the end. The rage that went through me was white-hot. Don't you dare use her pain medication against her. Don't you dare suggest she was confused. She was sharp until the day she died, and you know it. David's mask slipped completely. His face went hard. Okay, fine. You want to do this? Let's do this. Yeah, I took some money. So what? That business is as much mine as yours. I've worked there since I was 16. 25 years of my life, Dad. 25 years of taking orders, being treated like hired help, waiting for you to finally hand over what should have been mine years ago. I built that business from nothing, and I maintained it. I modernized it. Half those clients are only there because of relationships I built. You think Bob Harrington at Aerospace Dynamics keeps sending us contracts because of your welding? He sends them because I play golf with him every Thursday and laugh at his bad jokes. You think we got the movie studio work because of your reputation? That was me, Dad. Me schmoozing producers, me networking, me building the future while you were busy living in the past. So you stole from me. I borrowed against my inheritance. There's a difference. Your inheritance is what I choose to leave you, not what you decide to take. And even if the business was partly yours, which it isn't legally, you forged my signature. You created shell companies. You lied to me every single day for 3 years, and you ignored Mom dying because you were too busy in your workshop. Want to talk about moral failures, old man? Let's talk about how she begged you to spend time with her, and you always had just one more project. How she wanted to travel, and you said next year. How she died in our living room while you were 40 minutes away welding some rich guy's custom gate. The words hit me like bullets. He wasn't wrong. Not entirely. I had put work first. Had missed too many moments, had taken Christine for granted because I thought we had more time, but that didn't justify what he'd done. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. "I'm flying to Portland to stay with your sister. I'm going to review all of your mother's evidence, and then I'm going to decide what to do about it, about you, about the business, about everything. I suggest you hire a good attorney, David. Not that Marcus Petrie you've been talking to. A real one, a criminal defense attorney." "Criminal, Dad, come on. We can work this out. We're family. I felt something break inside me, the last thread of hope that maybe this could be fixed, that maybe David would apologize, would show remorse, would prove he was still my son somewhere under the greed. "You haven't been family since your mother died. Maybe before that. Maybe I just didn't want to see it." I walked past him to my truck. He didn't try to stop me. Just stood there in the driveway, hands clenched into fists, watching me go. At the airport, I sat in the Southwest terminal and called Frank Desmond back. Told him I was flying to Portland. He said he'd overnight the complete investigation file to Emma's address, which I gave him. Said he'd also be available to talk me through everything once I'd had time to review it. The flight was 2 hours and 43 minutes. I spent it staring out the window, thinking about everything. About the boy David had been, sweet-natured, curious, eager to please. When had that changed? Or had I just never seen what was really there? Had I loved an idea of my son instead of the reality of who he was? Emma picked me up at the airport in a Subaru Outback. She looked good, healthy. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, streaked with purple. She wore paint-splattered jeans and a Portland Trailblazers hoodie. She looked happy, which made me realize I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her happy. Maybe at her wedding 9 years ago, before I'd pulled her aside and told her she was making a mistake marrying Mark. Before I'd suggested she was throwing her life away. Before I'd made her cry on what should have been the happiest day of her life. We hugged awkwardly in the pickup area. Her arms were strong around me, and I realized she'd grown up into a woman I barely knew. When had that happened? When had I stopped paying attention? Traffic was heavy, rain was coming down, that constant Pacific Northwest drizzle that I'd always hated on the few times I'd visited. We sat in silence for a while, windshield wipers beating steadily. Then she spoke. "You want to tell me what's going on, not the surface stuff, the real story." So I told her everything, not the cleaned-up version I might have given David or Gerald or anyone else, the real version. I told her about finding Christine's body growing thinner every day, about how I'd failed to notice David's distance, his calculation, about how I'd been so desperate for connection after losing Christine that I'd believed every lie David told me because the alternative was admitting I was completely alone. I told her about the money, about the shell companies and forged signatures and $400,000 stolen while his mother was dying 30 feet away. About how David had looked at me in the driveway with cold eyes and blamed me for Christine's death. About how he'd said I'd ignored Mom dying because I was too busy in my workshop, and how he was right about that, at least partly right, and how that truth burned worse than any of his lies. I told her things I'd never said out loud, about the nightmares from Vietnam that still woke me up sometimes, about the bodies I'd seen, about the Marine next to me who'd been killed by a sniper while we were sharing a cigarette, about how I'd thrown myself into work after I came home because work made sense when nothing else did, about how I'd raised David the way my father had raised me, with discipline and high expectations, and very little warmth because that was all I knew, and I told her about the ways I'd failed her, about how I'd dismissed her art, about how I'd told her she wasn't good enough, smart enough, practical enough, about how I'd compared her to David constantly and found her wanting, about how I'd driven her away and then blamed her for leaving. Emma listened to all of it without interrupting. Just drove through the rain, through neighborhoods I didn't know, past houses and trees and coffee shops. When I finally finished, when I'd emptied out everything I'd been carrying, we were pulling up to her house. She turned off the car, Sat there with her hands on the steering wheel, finally looked at me. You know what's funny, Dad? Well, not funny. Ironic, maybe. David called me last year about a month after Mom died. Called me drunk, which he never does. He was furious, rambling, saying all this stuff about how you'd never valued him, how he'd wasted his life in that shop, how he was trapped and it was all your fault. I didn't know that. I didn't tell you because we barely talked, and when we did talk, you only wanted to hear about David. Perfect David. Successful David. David who did everything right while I was the disappointment who ran away to paint pictures, so I let you keep your illusions. But Dad, I've known for years that David resented you, that he was angry. I just didn't know how angry, didn't know he'd actually steal from you. She turned to face me fully. Why did you call me? Really? You haven't wanted my help in years. You made it clear I wasn't the child you wanted. So why now? Because your mother told me to. There was a P.S. in her letter. She said to call you. Said you're stronger than I think. Said I've been terrible at showing you I love you. And she's right about that. I have been terrible. And I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so damn sorry for all of it. Tears were running down her face now. I reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. She didn't pull away. I don't know how to be a good father, I said. I didn't know how when you were little, and I don't know how now, but I want to try. If you'll let me. I need help, Emma, not just with the David situation, with everything. I need help learning how to live again. Your mother tried to teach me, and I wasn't smart enough to listen. Maybe you can teach me. Maybe it's not too late. She was crying hard now, so was I. Two broken people sitting in a Subaru in the rain in Portland, Oregon, trying to find their way back to each other. It's not too late, she finally said. It's never too late, Dad. Come on, let's go inside. We'll figure this out together. Her house was cozy. Art everywhere, her own paintings on the walls, bright abstracts that I didn't understand, but that made the rooms feel alive. She showed me to a guest room upstairs. Small, clean, a quilted bedspread that looked handmade. Her husband, Mark, came home around 6. Tall, thin, bearded, a high school English teacher. He shook my hand warmly, no hesitation, despite how I'd treated him at their wedding 9 years ago when I'd told Emma she could do better, made spaghetti for dinner. We ate at their kitchen table and talked about normal things, their jobs, their garden. Portland's rainy season starting soon. It was the most normal I'd felt in over a year. The next morning, Frank Desmond's file arrived by FedEx. 347 pages of bank records, emails, photographs of documents, investigative notes. The package was heavy in my hands. Emma and I spread it out on her dining room table, which was really too small for all of it. Papers covered every surface. We had to move her coffee cup and breakfast dishes to the counter. Frank had been thorough in ways I hadn't expected. He'd traced every dollar David had taken, following money through 3 different shell companies, through personal accounts, through business expenses that didn't exist. He'd found emails David thought he'd deleted, screenshots of text messages, bank transfers made at odd hours, 2 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, always when he thought no one was watching. The shell companies had creative names that almost sounded legitimate. Superior Fabrication Consulting was supposedly a materials analysis firm. Desert Metals Advisory claimed to provide strategic planning services. Phoenix Manufacturing Solutions was listed as a supply chain optimization company. All 3 had websites. All 3 had business licenses. All 3 existed only to receive money from Morrison's Custom Metalworks and funnel it into accounts controlled by David. He'd been smart about it. Never took too much at once. Never created a pattern that would trigger automatic fraud alerts. He'd varied the amounts, the timing, the accounts. He'd forged my signature so perfectly that I had to look twice to confirm it wasn't mine. Someone had taught him this, or he'd researched it carefully. This wasn't impulsive theft. This was planned, systematic, patient. Emma found something I'd missed. A spreadsheet in the back of the file showing projected cash flow. David had been planning this for over a year before he started taking money. He'd calculated how much the business could lose without me noticing. He'd identified the accounts I checked least often. He'd studied my habits, my routines, my blind spots. He treated you like a mark, Emma said, her voice hard, like you were a con he was running. This wasn't desperation, Dad. This was predatory. The emails were worse. Conversations between David and Marcus Petrie dating back 2 years. Long before Christine got sick, long before I had my heart attack, they'd discussed the best time to approach me about transferring the business. They'd talked about waiting for a health crisis or a family tragedy that would make me vulnerable. We need him emotional but functional, one email read, too grief-stricken to think clearly, but not so impaired that a court could claim incompetence later. The death of his wife would be ideal. Give him a few months to spiral, then present the transfer as a way to honor her memory. I had to walk away from the table when I read that. Went to Emma's bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. Stared at myself in the mirror. An old man with red eyes and grey skin, a fool who'd let his son plan his destruction for years without noticing. When I came back, Emma had her phone out. She'd been calling Frank Desmond. She handed me the phone. "Mr. Morrison?" Frank's voice was steady, professional. "I take it you've reviewed the file, all of it. I don't understand how I missed this, how I didn't see it. Because you're not a paranoid person, Mr. Morrison. Because you trusted your son. Because the human brain is very good at seeing what it expects to see and ignoring evidence that contradicts our beliefs. David counted on that. He weaponized your love. We talked for 40 minutes. Frank walked me through each document, explained the legal implications, outlined my options. He'd already consulted with a criminal attorney and a civil litigator. He had contacts at the FBI who specialized in wire fraud. He'd prepared for every possible scenario. But he kept coming back to one question: what do you want the outcome to be? I want to understand why, I said. That's what I keep coming back to. The money, the business, I can deal with that. But why did my son hate me enough to do this? Frank was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Mr. Morrison, in 32 years of investigating financial crimes, I've learned that theft is rarely about the money. It's about power, control, revenge. Your son might not even hate you. He might love you, but love doesn't prevent resentment, especially when someone feels trapped by obligation and expectation. Your wife understood that. That's why her letter focused on protection, not punishment." After I hung up, Emma made tea. We sat in her living room surrounded by her paintings, bright abstracts that I was finally learning to appreciate, colors that clashed and somehow worked together, like our relationship, like this whole impossible situation. "Dad," she said carefully, "I need to tell you something. About David, about our childhood." "Okay. You remember how you used to take David to the shop on Saturdays? How you'd teach him welding and let him help with projects? Of course. Some of my best memories. You never invited me, not once. I'd ask if I could come, and you'd say the shop was no place for a little girl, that I'd just get in the way. So I'd stay home with Mom while you and David bonded over metal and machines. I opened my mouth to defend myself, then closed it. She was right. And when David got older, when he started working there full-time, you'd talk about him at dinner like he was this miracle. Your successor, the son who'd carry on the Morrison legacy. You never asked him if that's what he wanted. You just assumed. And you never noticed that he stopped smiling when you talked about it, that he got this look in his eyes like he was trapped but couldn't say anything because saying something would disappoint you. Did he tell you this? No. He never talked to me about it. We weren't close. You made sure of that by always comparing us, always making it clear he was the favorite. But I saw it, Dad. I saw him become someone else, someone colder, someone angrier. And I saw you miss all of it because you were so focused on what you wanted him to be that you never looked at who he actually was. I sat with that for a long time. The weight of it, the truth of it. I did the same thing to you, didn't I? I said finally. Decided who you should be instead of seeing who you were. Yeah, you did. And I left because I couldn't breathe under the weight of your disappointment. But David stayed, and staying destroyed him. Or he destroyed himself, I said. Emma, nothing you've told me excuses what he did. Nothing justifies stealing $400,000 while his mother was dying. There's a difference between being unhappy and being a thief. I know. I'm not excusing him. I'm just trying to help you understand. Because I think you need to understand before you decide what to do. She was right. I needed to understand, needed to see the full picture before I chose justice or mercy or something in between. I made my decision over the next 3 days. Emma and I talked for hours, sometimes at her kitchen table, sometimes walking through her neighborhood in the rain. Mark weighed in with quiet wisdom that I'd been too proud to hear 9 years ago. He was smarter than I'd given him credit for. Kinder, too. I called Carl, my old Marine buddy up in Flagstaff. We'd served together, survived together. He was the only person who understood what Vietnam had done to us, what we'd brought home in our heads. We talked for 2 hours on speakerphone while Emma listened. Carl had lost his own son to addiction 3 years ago. He knew about broken families. What Christine's telling you from the grave, Carl said, is that you have a choice. You can destroy David, or you can give him a chance to rebuild himself. Either way, your relationship with him is over as you knew it, but one path leaves him alive. The other path might kill him, literally or figuratively. You know David better than I do. Is he worth saving? I don't know anymore, I admitted. I don't know who he really is. Then find out before you decide. That's what Christine would want. Not revenge, understanding. Then justice, whatever that looks like. I called my sister in New Mexico, the one I'd barely spoken to in 5 years after we'd fought about Mum's estate. Turned out she'd been waiting for me to call, hoping I'd reach out. We talked about our own father, about how he'd been hard on us, how neither of us had learned to express love properly, how we'd repeated his mistakes with our own kids. Maybe this is your chance to break the cycle, she said. Not with David. That ship might have sailed, but with Emma and with yourself. On the 4th day, Emma and I reviewed all of Frank Desmond's evidence one more time. Spread it across her dining room table like a case file. She'd made notes in the margins, color-coded different types of fraud, created a timeline. Her organizational skills were remarkable. She'd have made a better business manager than David ever was. "What do you want, Dad?" she asked. "Not what Mom would want, not what's legally possible. What does Jack Morrison want?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, saw intelligence in her eyes, strength in her posture, saw Christine in the set of her jaw and the way she'd made sense of chaos, saw a woman who'd been waiting her whole life for me to see her. "I want my business back," I said. "I want him to pay for what he took, but I don't want to destroy him. I don't want to be the kind of father who sends his son to prison. Your mother wouldn't want that. And honestly, Emma, I don't think I could live with it. He's still my son, even if he's a thief. Does that make me weak? No, Dad. It makes you human. Let's find a way to make him accountable without destroying him. There's got to be a middle path. We found it. On the 4th day, I flew back to Phoenix. Emma came with me. We went straight to a new attorney she'd helped me find, a woman named Patricia Vance, who specialized in business law and had a reputation for being fair but firm. We filed a civil suit against David Morrison for embezzlement and fraud. We demanded full repayment of $563,000 plus interest and legal fees. We filed an emergency injunction blocking him from accessing any Morrison's Custom Metalworks accounts or assets, and we offered him a deal. Pay back every penny over 5 years at 6% interest, sign a complete separation agreement giving up all claims to the business. Accept a 2-year ban from working in custom fabrication in Arizona. Do all that, and we wouldn't file criminal charges. David fought it at first, hired Marcus Petrie, who turned out to be as slimy as Christine's investigation suggested. They threatened countersuits, claimed I was mentally incompetent, tried to argue that David had authority to move money as vice president. But Patricia was better. She had all of Frank Desmond's evidence. She had Christine's letter, which was devastating in a courtroom. She had emails where David literally discussed hiding his theft from his dying mother. The judge took one look at everything and ruled in my favor on every point. David had 30 days to start repayment or face criminal prosecution. He started paying, sold his house, sold his truck, moved into a small apartment in Mesa, got a job at a commercial welding shop, making $43,000 a year. Every month, I get a check for $9,672. He has 57 months left. I took over Morrison's Custom Metalworks again, promoted my shop foreman Carlos to operations manager. He's doing a great job. Better than David did, honestly, because Carlos actually cares about the work instead of just the money. We've had our best year ever. 4.1 million in revenue. I sold the house on Desert Willow Lane. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. Bought a smaller place in Fountain Hills with a view of the mountains. Emma helped me decorate. She picked colors Christine would have loved. I visit Emma in Portland every other month now. Sometimes I fly, sometimes I drive through Northern California up the coast. It's a beautiful drive, the kind Christine always wanted to take, but I never had time for. Now I have nothing but time, and I'm trying to spend it on things that matter. Emma's teaching me about art. We go to galleries, visit museums. She explains color theory and composition. I don't always understand, but I'm learning to see. Learning that there are different kinds of value beyond function, that beauty matters, that creativity is its own reward. We talk on the phone twice a week, sometimes about nothing, sometimes about deeper things. Her childhood, my mistakes, Christine, David. We're learning to be honest with each other, learning that love doesn't require perfection, just presence. Mark and I have become friends. He's teaching me to appreciate literature. He loans me books. We discuss them over the phone, fiction, poetry, essays about masculinity and fatherhood. I'm 68 years old and just now learning how to think about things that matter beyond work. David and I haven't spoken since the settlement. Not a single word in 10 months. Emma says he's struggling, working long hours at a commercial shop, living in a cramped apartment, making his monthly payments but barely scraping by. She says he's angry, bitter, tells everyone his father destroyed him over money. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am vindictive. Maybe I should have let him have the business and walked away, but I couldn't. Not because of the money, because of what Christine sacrificed to protect me, because of what it would have meant to let him get away with it. I think about Christine's text message every day. I had that phone examined by specialists. The third one, a young woman in Tempe, figured it out. David had accessed Christine's phone before her funeral, set up a delayed text to send on October 17th, probably to shake me up emotionally before signing. But Christine had also accessed that phone weeks earlier. She'd used a different app, a different system. She'd written, "Don't trust David, check the safe," and scheduled it to send if anyone tried to manipulate her phone after she died. David's deception activated her protection. Even in death, she was smarter than he was. Even in death, she was taking care of me. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't looked at that text. If I'd signed those papers, I'd be living on $5,000 a month, watching David sell the property to developers, watching everything I'd built get torn down for condominiums. I'd have nothing except the knowledge that I'd been a fool. But Christine saved me. One last act of love from the woman who'd stood by me for 44 years, who'd seen me at my worst after Vietnam, who'd helped me build something from nothing because she believed in me. I visit her grave every Sunday morning. The cemetery is on the east side of Phoenix, shaded by mesquite trees. I bring sunflowers, her favorite, sit on the bench nearby and talk to her about the business, about Emma, about David. Tell her I'm sorry for failing her. Thank her for never failing me. Morrison's Custom Metalworks is thriving. Last month we did $340,000 in revenue, our best month ever. I'm still the owner, but I'm learning to be absent, to trust my people, to let go of control. 50 years of habits don't break easily, but I'm trying. I've been thinking about succession planning, real succession planning. Carlos knows someone who might be interested, a woman named Jennifer who runs a fabrication shop in Tucson. Ex-Navy, 43, grew up in her father's machine shop. She wants to acquire Morrison's in 5 years, keep the name, the crew, the reputation. We've had 3 meetings. She's smart, asks good questions, sees the value in what we've built. Christine would have liked her. I'm teaching her what I can, taking my time because this time I'm going to get it right. No assumptions, no expectations, just an honest business transaction between 2 people who respect each other. The strange thing is, I'm happier now than I've been in years. Losing David hurt. Finding out he'd betrayed me hurt worse. But cutting out the rot, letting Emma back into my life, building something real instead of something based on obligation, that's been healing. I'm 68 years old. I had a heart attack 14 months ago. The doctors say my arteries look better now. Losing the daily stress has been good for my health. I've lost 20 pounds, sleep better. Turns out letting go keeps you alive longer. David and I haven't spoken since the settlement. I don't know if we ever will. Emma says he's angry, bitter, blames me for everything. Maybe he's right to. Maybe I failed him as a father in ways I still don't fully understand, but I can't fix that now. All I can do is live with it. I think about Christine's text message every day. That impossible message from beyond the grave that saved me. I had her phone examined by a specialist. Turns out David had set up a delayed text before her funeral, using Christine's phone, while he had those private minutes with her casket. He'd programmed it to send on October 17th at 9:45, knowing that was the day we were signing the business over. His insurance policy, probably, in case I got suspicious at the last minute. A way to shake me up, make me emotional, make me more likely to go through with the signing, because I'd think it was a sign from Christine that David was trustworthy. He'd forgotten that Christine had written actual instructions to check the safe, or maybe he never knew about the safe. Either way, his manipulation backfired spectacularly. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't looked at that text, if I'd just ignored my phone and signed those papers. I'd be living in my house right now with $5,000 a month, watching David bulldoze everything I'd built. I'd have nothing left except the knowledge that I'd been a fool. But Christine saved me. One last time. One last act of love from the woman who'd stood by me for 44 years. I visit her grave every Sunday morning, bring flowers, talk to her about the business, about Emma, about David, tell her I'm sorry for all the ways I failed her. Thank her for the ways she never failed me. The strange thing is, I'm happier now than I've been in years. Losing David hurt. Finding out he'd betrayed me hurt worse. But cutting out the rot, letting Emma back into my life, building something real, instead of something based on obligation and resentment that's been healing. I'm 68 years old. I had a heart attack 14 months ago. My doctor says I need to slow down, but I'm not ready yet. Morrison's custom metalwork still has work to do. I still have work to do. And for the first time in my life, I'm doing it for the right reasons. Not for legacy, not for my son, not because I don't know what else to do with myself. I'm doing it because I love it, because creating something with my hands makes me feel alive, because when I strike an arc and lay a perfect weld, I'm connected to every welder who came before me and everyone who'll come after. That's enough. That has to be enough. Christine would say it's more than enough. She'd say I finally figured out what she'd been trying to teach me for 4 decades. That life isn't about what you build or what you leave behind. It's about the moments in between, the people you love, the truth you tell, the grace you show even when someone doesn't deserve it. I gave David grace, not because he earned it, but because his mother asked me to, because holding on to rage would have destroyed me more than it would have hurt him. Because at 68 years old, I don't have time for anything except what matters. Emma matters. The business matters. The work matters. Christine's memory matters. And somewhere, buried under years of resentment and greed and bad choices, maybe David still matters too. Maybe someday he'll find his way back to the person he was supposed to be. Maybe not. Either way, I'll be here, working in my shop, visiting my daughter, living the life Christine wanted for me. The life I almost signed away for $5,000 a month and a son's false smile. That text message, those 6 words from beyond the grave, they didn't just save my business. They saved my life, gave me a second chance to get things right. And this time, I'm not wasting it. Don't trust David. Check the safe. 6 words. That's all it took. 6 words from the woman who loved me enough to protect me even after death. I'll never know if she's watching somehow, if she knows I found the documents and made the right choice. But I like to think she does. I like to think she's proud of me. That somewhere she's smiling because I finally learned the lesson she spent 44 years trying to teach me. Family isn't blood. It's not obligation. It's not who shares your name or your DNA. Family is who shows up, who tells you the truth even when it hurts, who protects you even after they're gone. Who loves you not because they have to, but because they choose to, every single day, until the day they can't anymore. Christine chose me. Emma chose me. Carlos and my crew at the workshop, they chose to stay and rebuild with me. That's my family now. That's what matters. David made his choice too, and I've made mine. I choose to remember the boy he was, to grieve the man he could have been, and to live my life without him in it. That's the hardest grace of all, the grace of letting go. But I'm learning, one day at a time, one weld at a time, one Sunday visit to Christine's grave at a time. I'm learning to live again, really live. And maybe that's the real inheritance she left me. Not the documents in the safe, not the warning that saved my business, but the reminder that life is short and precious and should never be signed away to anyone who doesn't value what it took to build it. I'm Jack Morrison, 68 years old, Marine Corps veteran, widower, father, business owner, welder, and for the first time in a long time, I know exactly who I am and what I'm worth. Nobody can take that from me, not even my son. Not anymore.